Did you hear those shoes? Give me a tame marmoset, figuratively. The Mysterons. This is what straight leg chords are all about. Do you still get these difficult questions if you don't elevate rock and roll above its status as soundtrack for growing up? Bryan Talbot.
Comics, or alternative comics. Alternative comics means comics outside the mainstream publishing. Now, British comics come out of American underground comics. That starts in the 50s, when there was an overground comic. It was on, kids bought it. It was called, the brand name was EC Comics, and these comics were called things like Vault of Terror, Crypt of Evil, and the stories were really horrible. There were intestines everywhere, people being hung. But one of the guys who used to run the EC Comics and Mad when it first started was P.Cookson, and he developed an alternative magazine in the early 60s called Help. In the pages of Help, they encouraged new, young illustrators who had different ways of drawing, and they couldn't really draw for the big glossy magazines. It wasn't, the style didn't fit. One was called Robert Crumb, and one was Gilbert Shelton. Now, Robert Crumb, shortly after this, started getting comics out on his own tiny things, called Robert Crumb's Comics and Stories. And Gilbert Shelton started drawing a strip. It was syndicated in lots of American underground magazines called the Furry Freak Brothers. Meanwhile, Robert Crumb, he did a whole comic by himself called Zap Comics. And as he progressed, they started discovering new underground comic artists. They began to be called underground comics, and it attracted quite a few people who'd not seen the work in print before. One of these was Robert Williams, who did very surrealistic comics. S. Clay Wilson, who did very crude, violent comics, crudely drawn, crudely conceived, but they had a big impact. They hit you. I think that's amazing, really. Something that's 2D, it's black and white, just making you have a gut reaction like that, reaching out of it. Anyway, this is the effect most underground comics have, and they tend to push the boundaries of what's accepted in all sort of fields, like depiction of violence, depiction of sex, depiction of drug taking, etc., etc., etc. One of these artists to appear in that was Rick Griffin, who later became famous for all his San Francisco posters and his Grateful Dead covers. Meanwhile, a guy called Greg Irons, illustrator, he got out a comic called Skull, shortly followed by another one called Slow Death. Skull mainly featured Gothic style horror stories set in a modern setting. Slow Death was like tales of the ecological disaster, corporate crime. Skull, it was done very much in the style of the EC Comics of the 50s. He got out lots of comics with social commentary in, and he found that most underground comics do reflect current situations. Another underground comic artist notable to mention is Trina Robbins, who's the most well-known female comic artist in America, underground comic artist that is. She was responsible for a comic called It Ain't Me Babe, which was a feminist comic. It was all written and drawn by women. Now, over here, British alternative comics started when the underground newspapers, inspired by the hippie revolution of the late 60s, started running American comic strips in the pages. Now, these newspapers were called Friends and IT, International Times, and Oz was the magazine. And these had a tremendous influence on anybody who'd read them, who'd never read them before, and inspired a lot of people to start drawing like them. Now, about 1970, RT, at that time it was being edited by Mick Farry for the Enemy. Him, along with Ed Barker, who used to be art director on RT, who was into Robert Crumb style comics. They put out a comic called Nasty Tales, which emulated the American comics. In fact, most of it was American material. The only English artists to appear in it were Ed Barker, doing these little cartoony things, and a guy called Chris Welsh, who did a strip called Ogoth the Barbarian. He did a strip for Melody Maker a while ago. Anyway, Nasty Tales went on to issue 6, mainly with American material in it, and by the time it reached 6, it was busted for obscenity over issue number 1, and the resulting cost of the trial put it out of business. Now, it's quite an amazing trial. It made legal history, because they got off the charge by claiming that comics were art, and art isn't obscene. Now, meanwhile, Oz had folded, and the people who used to run Oz, mainly Felix Dennis, they decided to go into comics, alternative comics. So they got a comic called Cosmic Comics. They lasted for about 19 to 20 issues, folded in about 1974. But in that time, they ended up converting over completely to English artists, British artists. These were then Chris Welch and Ed Barker again from Nasty Tales. And they introduced people like William Rankin, who he did stuff. He ended up doing stuff for the Radio Times. The same can be said of Bill Sanderson. Ended up doing the same thing. And Peter Till, Ryan Boland, who did a strip called, what was it, Little Nympho in Slumberland. Anyway, when Cosmic Comics eventually folded, mainly because of bad distribution. Now that's the thing that kills all alternative comics if they die, it's by bad distribution. You see, the attitude of distributors over here, people like W.H. Smith, you know, the really big people, you'll show them a comic, a sophisticated comic, and they'll say, oh, we're not distributing this won't sell. Adults don't read comics. This is a problem peculiar to Britain. When Cosmic Comics folded, they started producing a magazine called Kung Fu Monthly. Just when Kung Fu was coming, it went into the mainstream market, and I think Felix Dennis is now a millionaire. Anyway, after Cosmic folded, there was a silence fell on the comic scene in Britain till late 1975 when Brainstorm Comics #1 appeared. Now I did that, surprisingly enough. We continued up to 1977. The issues 1 to 3 of Brainstorm Comics featured the Chester Hackenbush trilogy. We had a comic out, part of the Brainstorm series, called Mixed Bunch, and this was the nearest thing that happened since Cosmic Comics folded. It was 4 underground artists together in one comic. Now, Mixed Bunch had featured Chris Welch again. He was at that time looking for Bike magazine, I believe, doing a strip in Bike magazine. It also featured Hunt Emerson. Now, Hunt had been getting comics out, very small print on comics, about 200, later going up to about 2,000, with Birmingham Artslav, Dogman was one of the most well known. Most of them were called street comics. And they organised 2 conventions that focused the alternative comic energy that was going around at the time into 2 venues. It's called Convention of Alternative Comics, or CAC for short. You know, crystallised the movement, if you like, a year or 2 ago. Everybody was really expecting something fantastic to happen, and we also did realise that nothing's going to happen overnight. If people in Britain start reading more sophisticated comics, it's going to happen gradually. About the same time as Brainstorm 1 came out, Tony Gura put a comic out called Bogey, which was very much in the style of the early Nasty Tales. And he's still going. Another comic to come out about this time was Grafixus. This came out just as Brainstorm was finishing its run, its 2-year run. These were published by a character called Mal Burns. Grafixus has been going on and off for a couple of years. Now, in September last year, 1978, a comic called Near Myths came out. This was published by Rob King, and I appear in that again, doing a strip called The Adventures of Luther Arkwright, which it's appearing in Near Myths in chapters, but really it's 170, 200-page novel, and when it's finished I'm hoping somebody is going to publish it. And Near Myths also introduced a talented illustrator named Graham Manline. There's 4 issues in Near Myths appeared, which is quite good going in an alternative comic. Circles to get 4 issues out so fast, and 5's in the works. I'm actually editing number 5. The comics I do, each and every one's a concept comic. I work out the story, and then I decide on the overall feel. I tend to get the atmosphere first before the story. The atmosphere I want to project, and then everything within the comic, and then everything within the comic, that particular comic, it's geared to all this particular concept. The style it's drawn in, the way it's written, the way it's presented overall, the visual effect it has when you read it. This preoccupation with concept comics has led me to do this eventually throughout, right? Which is the biggest thing I've attempted to do. Is be sort of an epic, I think, how it's finished. But I'm trying to do a very sophisticated comic. I'm doing away with sound effects, speed lines. I'm not stressing any letters in the lettering. See, when you're doing the alternative comics, there's no obligation to house style, no commercial considerations to be involved really, because it's very low pay, if anything. The alternative comics, they're done for the love of it. And this is why I prefer adult comics, the freedom of expression. There's no reason why comics shouldn't be considered an art form. After all, literature is considered an art form, illustrations, and really it's a combination of the two, with a lot of movie technique thrown in. Basically, the first American underground comics were meant to be read while you were listening to acid rock music, while you were taking drugs of some sort. And most of the drawings in the comics, the effects they have are there to emphasise hallucinogenic effects that you have off drugs.
You think I'm serious? From Chorley.
Hello, Bob. Right, this is a From Chorley demo tape. Hate the kitchen. Don't bang! Don't bang! Stop! Clattering! Stop! And quit that kettle! Don't bang! Don't bang! Clattering. Stop. And quit that kettle. Bang! Don't bang! Stop! Clattering! Stop! And quit that kettle. This one's called the Amazon Nugget Dealer.
Mr. Wrangler says so. Here, in the best of all possible worlds, we have for you P.Cookson and L.Hickey.
Burning delight from the inside. Yellow is the shade. poverty may cause you unhealth, but they also wish you prosperous to seduce you. Dirty sickness is their healthy wealth. So, motion suicide, you're going along for the ride. Slow motion, but you wanna speed it up. You wanna speed it up. Breathing like a man in a maze, it's hard to get out. Living in a Renaissance world, you're on limitless time. Just burning away the rest of your wasted life. You're a filter, yes you are, of course you are. You're a filter tip. You are a filter tip. Life's a drag, watch it burn away. 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 That's up. 28, 38, 48, 48. Life away. Kick, soul abuse. Smoke, every day. Just hold your ashes in a truck. Go on, throw them out. You're a filter tip. $2,000 million every year. Infiltrate the world society. The poster show of good interest and burn life away. Why, when there's so many folks in need? In need? Why in need?
Isn't it strange? The music. Growing, changing, wilting, to die. Aren't they strange? The lyrics. Beginning, shaping, fading, to stop. Isn't it strange? The song. Rising, crashing and calming, to vanish. Aren't they strange? The people. Whispering, shouting, singing, to drown. Isn't it strange? Everything. Nothing. The monk. The walls loom up before him, the same cracks and holes where mice starve. They have no belief, they have no food. The cross at his side, the wooden staff of his soul, the saviour of his mind. Sometimes he is alone, really alone. There is no staff, no saviour, lonely. Only his habit and the shell of a man who is true to the one who matters. A tear would roll down his face, a solitary tear. Like an invaluable diamond it would fall to the floor. The stone would swallow his sadness. The stones had no feeling, no cares. He'd shuffle along, cold. He'd like to have been born without belief, but he was destined for this life now. He was the only one left. Everyone else had deserted the cause. The day of reckoning would make them sorry. But, God forgive me, he would exclaim, as soon as his thoughts turned to prejudice. In this state he would carry on, down the corridor, mumbling his regrets. Turning into the chapel he would clasp his cross, thankful of its solid state, his staff once more. He would kneel before the bare wall where once a tapestry had hung. He would pray for guidance, for reassurance. Then he would carry on into the depths of the monastery, travelling and circling his domain like a proud eagle, watching for predators who wished to destroy his house. In the village below, nestling in the growth of spring, The citizens were planning to take away the ruined remains of the great monastery, to take it away stone by stone, and to rebuild it elsewhere. The monk prayed for safety. They marched up the cliff, archaeologists alike, smiles upon their frowns, wondering what discoveries await their historic minds. The monk prayed for sanity. As they shut the door of the van, he prayed, to whom he did not know, to the rain gods, the sun gods, the love gods, to God. As he was trundled away, he drifted into death.
Jimmy Percy meets the residents. What's music for? Is this a waste of idealism? Are there more important things? White Steel.
It's on. Yes. Well, this is the new look White Steel playing The Little Green Men Have Landed. 1, 2. This one is God's gift to mankind. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whenever like to have sight. Everyone else is so obviously wrong, and only you know you're right, 'cause you've already made up your mind. You're God's gift to mankind. You've already made up your mind. You're God's gift. Despise anybody who isn't like you. Why should you even care? Judge everyone on appearance alone, how they dress and the length of their hair, 'cause you've already made up your mind. You're God's gift to mankind. You've already made up your mind. You're God's gift. Believe in yourself to such an extent that you're always your own number one. Don't believe anyone who tries to tell you that narcissism's no fun, 'cause you've already made up your mind. You're God's gift to mankind. You've already made up your mind. You're God's gift.
Imagine this scene. A town centre at about 7 o'clock at night. Night is just beginning. Two figures of average appearance walk along the main street towards the town square. As they approach it, from the shadows other figures slowly emerge, all dressed in the same manner. Their uniform is a yellow jacket and white pants. They walk towards the centre of the square, join hands, and begin to move in a circle around the other two figures. By now these have taken off their coats to reveal dazzling white costumes. They stand stock still. This has nothing to do with John Lees. Goodbye.